Hi, this is David Toulis. Thank you for joining me here. We have a lot to think about today and to get to. We're going to talk with some insiders about a very, you might call it a dark part of local economy, and it is a part where there's a kind of desperation and paralysis, and these men are making a living selling into that sphere. And then later, I hope we can have some insight into the surveillance machinery and a local economy solution to national and international surveillance. We have a good lineup today, and I thank you for joining me here. My name is David Toulis, and I'm the mild-mannered editor of Nuganomics.com. That is a simple website, and I'm going to have to improve it, I hope, to make it so that you can read it on your handheld device, and even on your phone right now it's not as friendly as it needs to be, and I think that's prevented me from getting a second reader to that website. I mean, you might be a reader, but I've got one reader, and I'm trying to get the second reader at Nuganomics.com. It's a website for the Minority Report, and we know that Minority Reports are never popular, and so I have one reader, and I'm looking for a second one. If I adjust my website, I might be able to get that second reader. But I thank you for being a reader, the reader, at Nuganomics.com. You saw the story about Convergys adding 400 jobs in the city. The Chattanooga Times Free Press, Mike Perry, the staff writer, has a story about 400 being added at the Eastgate Town Center. And we have to remember, though, as people who are defenders of local economy, that an outside corporation that adds jobs here is hiring people, but wages are not profit, and the profit for Convergys leaves the county, it leaves Chattanooga, it leaves a residue of wages, of course, and we can hail that as good news at $10 an hour. But what we really want to have is local ownership and import substitution, which is a concept which I think we can apply to another story that's in the news today, and that is the prospect of City Council buying the former Harriet Tubman government slum facility at the foot of Missionary Ridge. These are vacant complex, and the mayor, Andy Burke, is proposing to spend $3 million to buy these acres. It's 30-some acres, according to Chloe Morrison, writing this morning in Nuga.com. There's a quote from a chamber official. The chamber reflects this large perspective where we bring in a Convergys in Chattanooga, and very little seems to be said by that pro-business organization about generating and creating local industry. So that's why Nuganomics is here, to encourage every man, all your friends, and you especially, to start that home-based business, starting very, very small, running in the red for a long time, but eventually expanding out of your garage, out of your living room. Maybe your wife has some really neat thing that she makes, and then hiring people to make these things and having a business. That's local business creation, and that's important because the profit stays here. There's a quote here from Charles Wood, the VP of Economic Development, as it's called, with the Chattanooga Area Chamber of Commerce. He says to at Nuga.com, "Our hope is that the city is able to move forward and acquire the site. It could aid opportunity for location of a new business. We're looking for companies that could locate on that site that would create new jobs and new investment in that area." Well, that's fine if these are local entrepreneurs, but why not have this land be purchased by private investors who will probably pay less than if it's sold to government? And the idea of these big outsiders such as Convergys coming into Chattanooga and Hamilton County is that we've created jobs. If you have a jobs mentality and you focus on jobs, then you'll get jobs, but the profit doesn't stay here. What we need to have is what's called LOIS, local ownership import substitution, where your capitalist, your enterprise, your service business, your manufacturing, the factory, comes here, the profit stays here, the workers are here, reinvestment is here, and again, that's you're importing, you're substituting imports rather than bringing things in from outside. You make them here and sell them here. That's the idea of local economy, and this can take place even though the global economy is a great field to discuss, and is insofar as the global economy is free from government's meddling, free from cartels, free from government favors and subsidies of inside connected players, then you have a free market. And the global economy is something that will prosper everyone, and that is through international trade, through interstate trade, and through intercounty trade and intercity trade. That is the global economy, if you want to describe it from that perspective. But our perspective is deliberately and poignantly even lococentric. So we're trying to figure out how can we think in terms of local development. And the chamber model is, you might call the TINA model, there is no alternative. And that is always to bring in the big guy who is invited by a tax break, state, even federal, county and city tax breaks. And what you get is jobs. And you get a little bit of construction work at the beginning. Our show today is going to look at paralysis. There's a paralysis that affects several areas. It affects the idea of the low end buyer, which of cars, which I hope we can look at a little bit today. And there's a paralysis that affects the willingness of people like you to defend yourself from surveillance. Somehow we know that it's happening, and yet no one does anything. Why does no one do anything, it seems, to defend himself from surveillance? Have you been to a website that lets you send email anonymously? Have you made that minor step? Well, I haven't. Why? Why are we suddenly, we're all been made public. We've all been converted into public people. And no one does anything about it. Why is that? I think there may be some reasons for that we can't explain, and I don't think we'll have time to get to them today, the more interesting ones, but some of them we can look at. The third paralysis is of language, and it touches on the Collegedale vote in Seventh-day Adventist land, the little town that made itself a corporation back in the early 60s or late 50s, so that it could regulate in favor of the Ellen White model the Lord's Day to be Saturday as opposed to the first day of the week, which Christendom at large celebrates. And in that town, there was a vote Monday night to allow for the town corporation to give benefits to homosexual partners as if they were married. The paralysis, there's in ways, it's funny to talk about paralysis because I've got in my hand a large knife, a very heavy large knife, called it's an encyclopedia, one of a set that I have. It's called American Jurisprudence Second, State and Federal, and I'm reading in the heading of municipal corporations. The power of municipal corporations is not what you think, and this story is not what you think either. And so there's this knife. But before we get to the knife dropping down into the lard, if you will, I think there's a paralysis in the way this story has been presented, and I just wanted to mention how a couple things that are that kind of annoy me as an editor. Right, I'm an editor. I look at things. I try to be fair, but of course I'm partisan. But I try to be fair to people I'm talking about and people I'm writing about, and I don't want them to be hated. But I want them to be seen as misunderstood, perhaps, or wrong. The best story of the day was by Gail Perry, writing in the Chattanoogan. The Chattanooga Times-Free Press story was, it seemed faulty by Katie Harrison, the young reporter. It seemed faulty for a couple reasons, but but Gail Perry at the Chattanooga really got into the legal questions of how can this happen if the Tennessee Constitution has a ban on homosexual marriage? How can we have a corporation, that is a municipal corporation, saying something about marriage or family and then passing the permission for benefits? And apparently most people in Collegedale oppose this move, though the city commission voted largely in favor of it, 4-1. And let's see, the point I would make about Josiah, the key's right here. Josiah?
Yeah.
The key's right here on the floor. The story in the Free Press uses the word same-sex 3 times. It uses the word homosexual not 1 time.
On the floor. Oh. So you see it.
Sorry. And it uses the word lesbian 0 times. So you have this moniker called same-sex, or it's called same-sex marriage, which is a put-to-sleep paralysis kind of phrase. And so that annoys me, because the editor says wording should be varied. What? The wording should be varied. The story that I saw from Channel 9 made a reference to the detective in Collegedale, and it made a reference to the detective and her wife. Well, how can anybody know who's the wife and who's the husband if you have 2 women? How can a reporter make a reference like that? That's like saying a man and his husband. Who is to, if you're a reporter who has to be objective, how can you say that this man is the husband and that man is the wife? How can that be offered as factual language, as a language of an objective report? I think that's a problem. But that's some of the fat, you might say, of the report. And the commission, the Collegedale Commission, claimed in the reporting by Gail Parrott, claims to be doing too little. It says it's not going against the constitutional rule on marriage. It's not making any statement about marriage. It's pretending not to be offending the state's prerogative in defining marriage, and the people's prerogative, which, remember, the state defines marriage as between a man and a woman through a constitutional vote, an amendment to the Constitution. And Mr. Elliott, Sam Elliott, the county, or the lawyer for the city, is quoted as saying that, said Mr. Elliott went on to say that the city cannot legally recognize as a marriage the union of a same-sex couple. Here we go again with that language that kind of makes your mind go to sleep. They can, however, recognize a non-traditional family relationship. The Collegedale commissioners respect the Tennessee Constitution in that regard. It's implied that he says that. That is the basis for the resolution that will now provide equal benefits to same-sex couples. That doesn't make any sense at all. How can recognition of the state's prerogative be the basis of now providing same-sex couple benefits because they have a family? How does that? I don't see how that is reached. But this is kind of intellectual blubber, if you will. It's not. It doesn't seem to be fitting to the real situation legally. The situation legally is that Collegedale is a municipal corporation. As I said, it was founded back in the early 1960s, I believe, as under the authority of the legislature. Became a corporation with all the usual attributes of a corporate entity, which is to say a personality, but it has a public character, according to American jurisprudence, by virtue of having been invested by the legislature with subordinate legislative power to administer local and internal affairs of the community. In other words, it has a right of authority granted by the Tennessee General Assembly. As a political arm of the state, a municipal corporation has the power to regulate and administer the local and internal affairs of the area covered by the corporation, although its powers in this respect are only those which have been legislatively granted, together with the powers recently incident thereto. And this is the part I marked with my my famous highlighter here, the accent highlighter that I always have in my pocket. And it derives its existence and its powers from the legislature, having been created by the state as a convenient agency for exercising such of the state's governmental powers as may be entrusted to it. And there's an observation: a municipal corporation is subject to virtually absolute control of the state legislature. You have that absolute control. Now, this is not Tennessee specific. This is American. I did not consult Tennessee jurisprudence of the state legislature as to the exercise of its powers and the organization of its government, and as to its corporate existence, except as the legislature may be restricted by the state constitution. Its territory or its powers may be enlarged or diminished, and its corporate existence is created and may be terminated at the will of the state's legislature. As a governmental agency, a municipality has, now this is the part that really strikes into the heart of the gay vote in Collegedale. A municipality has no vested rights in which it may assert against the state. All right, got that? Collegedale has no authority to assert against and no vested rights with which it can assert against or stand upon to oppose the legislature of the state, nor has it any privileges or immunities under the federal constitution which it may invoke in opposition to the will of its creator. Okay? Town governments are completely subject to the legislature. They are servants of the legislature. You guys can come in to sit down if you like. They are creatures of the legislature. They're wholly made by the legislature. They don't exercise any authority apart from or outside that grant of power. They do not have authority to exercise. And Collegedale here has exercised authority to say something. And Mr. Elliott, in what seems to me from somewhat of a distance, a somewhat tortured reasoning, says that we're not making any statement against the constitutional provision on marriage. But the Free Press has a little info box that says, what does the resolution say? And the fact that it points to to an alien document that the married couple presents just goes to show you the folly of this move. It says, any employee seeking such coverage must produce an official marriage document of the state in which they were married to the human resources manager of this town government. All right, what do you think the value of that document is in Tennessee? Do you think there's a value to that? Is that a document whose words mean anything here? Do they convey a right in Tennessee? Well, all right, you're not sure. Well, here's the constitutional amendment that was passed by the people by an 81% margin in 2006. It says the historical institution and legal contract solemnizing the relationship of one man and one woman shall be the only legally recognized marital contract in the state. Okay, this is a redundant provision in the statute. Okay, the amendment became part of the statute, the Tennessee Code annotated. Right, that's version 1. Okay, the only legally recognized marital contract in this state. Any policy or law or judicial interpretation purporting to define marriage as anything other than the historical institution and legal contract between one man and one woman is contrary to the public policy of this state. All right, the married couple, Kat, the detective in Collegedale, is coming to the personnel manager in Collegedale with her piece of paper from Maryland where she and her friend, her wife, got married. What is the value of those words? The sentence goes on to say, and shall be void and unenforceable in Tennessee. So that it's not just that the words on that piece of paper presented to the Collegedale personnel manager are voidable. It says here in the statute that they're void. Okay, not just voidable, but void on their face. And then to continue in this redundancy of the Tennessee law, if another state or foreign jurisdiction issues a license for persons to marry, and if such marriage is prohibited in this state by the provisions of this section, then the marriage shall be void and unenforceable in the state. So the detective in Collegedale has a void marriage. Okay, she has a void marriage. Her claims to be married are unenforceable. They are not enforceable. Kat Cooper, the detective, is married, and her wife, according to the resolution by the city commission, her wife can finally have insurance coverage under her grant. Okay, her grant under a license by a foreign state. Now, this affects local economy because local economy is prospers in marriage. Okay, marriage prospers local economy. Children prosper local economy, and it is public policy, and it is the law in Tennessee that marriage is a unique contract. It is the basis of civilization. I've written about this, by the way, with some interest at Nuganomics.com. You should attend the work that I do there as the mild-mannered editor. Nuganomics.com is a place for thinking people. And there is a very ancient case, I think from 1858, which I very lightly described with some humor, pointing out that there is a state interest in marriage. I would say that there shouldn't be a state interest, but there is, as things now stand, given that we have a statutory marriage regime which sets aside common law marriage. And my theory is that you should marry common law because you are exercising a right. Marriage is not something that is owned by the state, and when you obtain a license to do anything, you know what you're doing, right? You're asking permission to do something that's otherwise illegal, unlawful, or prohibited. And I've not heard that Tennessee has prohibited marriage, but it in fact did by enacting a marriage statute in 2 waves of legislation in the 19th century. So we're kind of stuck with this system where the state owns marriage. But I've written about that too, defending the concept of common law marriage, and there are legal traps that you avoid if you marry at common law. So what we have in this is a very dramatic vote of secession. Collegedale City Commission votes to secede from the state, but of course that's not really what that commission did, and its effort to defy the law is one, I believe, that Mr. Elliott will be defending against if there is some person in Collegedale, in the municipal borders of that town, who has standing to challenge this transfer as unlawful. And it's very possible that no one will. It's very possible that there will be no defenders of marriage, and that who has standing to sue against this transfer of benefits to her wife. And but I think if there is someone who's concerned about this matter and who wants to defend the integrity of marriage in Tennessee, they would have he or she would have standing to block this vote and make much of this very Tony and popular move that makes Collegedale out to be a very progressive place, a place ahead of its time, right? Ahead of itself. Well, this is David Tulis. We're going to talk about another very interesting part of local economy. I've got a couple of men here who are rough and tumble actors in local economy who are making a living. We'll be right back.
On your AM radio at 910.
Here you are.
On the net, go to
Well, welcome,
Fighting the good fight, huh?
Chris and
Chris download TuneIn and search for Copperhead 1240.
Well, thanks for coming.
And of course,
You can get away? You can spare it?
Yeah.
What's going on down there? Who's got a robot?
Our old
Secretary.
finance manager secretary came in.
Okay, and your girlfriend is there?
No,
She has
she's
part
not.
full-time job, right?
She's working full-time.
Okay. Well, okay.
The Man Radio Station, unofficial, nasty.
Well, let's see. I think
Southern rock.
y'all discussed who's going to go first. I think we should talk first. You kind of set the tone for this whole interview, I think. And is that okay? Now, you don't have to have these, but if you're on, I'll go ahead and put these on, and let's just get you lined up here. We have one listener. We have one viewer. Okay?
Hamilton Discount Pharmacy.
He's right here. And
So is this actually on
yeah,
online?
it's on right now.
Okay.
Glad y'all are here. Thanks for joining me.
Good to be here.
Notice I said y'all. That's a mistake. Thank you for being here. There's not a plural. There's not a plurality. There's a singularity. And that's how you create intimacy. Radio is personal. It's delivered one person at a time. So I have to remember that. And you know, since I make the minority report, every listener is important. And every reader is important.
Sure.
And you know, you sell cars one person at a time. You don't sell to a crowd.
Well, you know, another thing is we don't look at ourselves like, it's funny we have a lot of titles. You know, we're psychiatrists, we're salesmen,
Just put it on.
we're
Go
all
ahead.
of these things.
Just talk.
And we don't really look at ourselves as used car dealers. We're small business owners trying to pretty much make a go at not having to work for anybody else. I mean, there's ways that we do give back, and we are fulfilled. We fulfill that aspect of the need that all humans have. But you know, we're just two guys.
You're an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
That's why you're on my show.
Sure.
394-6428. Call for a great time.
You're the little guy. I'm all about little guys on my show.
Call 394-6428.
All right, so Chris
Sitterding.
Sitterding, and Chris Fries. I asked my wife to look it up. Friesland, it's from Friesland. And I said, well, what does it mean? She couldn't translate.
More likely for the
Dutch-
midweek highs
Dutch
into the
speaker.
mid and upper 80s.
Okay.
Check out CVS Pharmacy.
She just didn't have time to
Attention
tell
Medicare
me.
members with diabetes.
And I'm not sure what Sitterding means, but that's German.
Medicare Part B
German.
coverage for diabetes
You have
declined.
foreign names from the
Find your
old
local
world,
CVS
and yet
pharmacy
you are
today and on WD.
modern American local boys, man.
Hanging out in Soddy Daisy, Tennessee.
Pepperell High School in Rome, graduated Jacksonville State University in Alabama, early 2000s. You started
Mid-2000s.
Mid-2000s. You started River City in 2011. Well, let's talk about. Can we talk about expansion? I mean, that way we're talking about capital creation. Can you borrow $200,000 for another lot? Could you just do that?
It took a lot of planning on our behalf for the last decade and a half.
But you paid off that debt, right?
Personal, well, I mean, from personal credit and
Hassan has said he will call only
achieving
two.
good
We're not
status
sure
with
if
personal
that
credit to
includes
be able to borrow that
himself.
much money.
The judge did order
But it
that
took a
during
lot of
opening
200,000.
statements he would not
Can
be
you borrow
allowed to
200,000 yourself
testify.
individually?
Between us both, we could probably get about $450,000.
In Boston, a jury has just begun
That's
deliberations
just
in the
for
White
cars,
House
though. That's
vulture
not for
racketeering
any
case.
upgrades to
Former President
buildings,
George
new
W.
computer
Bush is in the
systems,
hospital.
any of that,
White House
inventory
correspondent
management,
Peter
none of
Mayer.
that.
A spokesman says former
Just for
President
cars.
Bush had the procedure
I don't
this
know that we
morning,
can go borrow
just a
money
day
for
after an arterial blockage was
anything
discovered
else.
during an annual
But if you-
physical.
what would be the rate of
Surgeons used a
repayment?
stent to clear that blockage, the 67-year-old former president
It's high.
described as
It's actually not,
10%?
it's actually not, you can't look at it like that, like it's us going to a bank and
The
borrowing.
United
It's actually
States
going
has
to a
evacuated all
company called a
non-essential
floor
embassy
plan.
workers from Yemen and
that-
is
Is that
urging other
mezzanine
Americans to
financing?
leave.
Do what?
The risk
Is that called
of attack
mezzanine
by
financing?
Al-Qaeda is considered high.
Is that the
A
term?
drone
Go ahead.
strike in
I've
Yemen
heard
today
that.
It's
But
a
that
floor
floor plan
plan
sounds like.
that they are a bank for car dealers, they hold the title until we pay it off, and we're allowed to make as much about it.
the murder of innocents for political
We buy
cause,
it,
don't
they
turn
floor it
back.
for a fee,
If
they
we
charge
don't take them
interest
off the
every
battlefield
45
where they are,
days.
they'll come
It has
back.
to be paid off
Pennsylvania
within
man's been
that.
arraigned
water.
on charges after the
Please.
town meeting shooting last night in the Poconos that left 3 dead.
The suspect, Rodney Newell, has a long-standing dispute with the Ross Township supervisor that condemned his property.
Reporter Lori Monteforti, a judge asked Newell if he owned property at a hearing. He said, "No, they stole it from me." Problems with the computer check-in system have caused headaches for flyers on certain airlines.
So you handed out a little slip of paper that kind of just said, hey, take your stuff out of your bag that's important because you may have your flight be canceled.
CBS News travel editor Peter Greenberg.
There's very little manual override available, except to handwrite tickets and handwrite boarding passes, but that depends on the airline even having a record of the reservation.
The problems caused more than a dozen flight delays. In
You a pretty good
Seattle and
interviewer?
Los Angeles, late
You gonna lead me
No.
through this
Yeah.
and
Well,
keep it going?
it's conversation. You say something, and that makes me ask you something, and then you never get to the point you're trying to get to, unless you say, by force of mind, well, let me finish what I was trying to say earlier. Feel free to get back if I distract you. Radio, I think, is better and more interesting if it's more back and forth, not as opposed to just a long monologue where you follow your own train of thought. I have to interrupt you because I have questions, of course, and it's not just like I've got these set questions. I mean, notice how thin this is. Kind of a thin. Usually I have a whole list of questions, but we didn't have much time, and we'd already talked at length, so I have the advantage of our conversation. Okay, now you need to stand. Right. Now look that way. Okay. All right. This is David Toulis. We are Nuganomics.com, the lococentric show, the Nugacentric show. Nugacentrism is our theory. That is not trademark. You should feel free to use it. And also feel free to use our slogan as you like. It's called, it reads this way, love your neighbor, shop local. And we have the idea that if we support local economy as opposed to the big boys, the CarMaxes, the big chains, the Walmarts, the Bi-Lows, the Lowe's, the Home Depots. If we support the local hardware store, the local car dealer, the small entrepreneur, that we might do better in Chattanooga in the long term. There is we are in a bubble. We're in a bond market bubble, and we have other bubbles created by easy credit. Easy credit extended to the banking sector. And we are facing major problems. In September, there'll be more hoopla over the federal debt limit, and the picture is very bleak. And so if we are going to prosper as a city and a county, we have to have local profit. And my guests always are thinking about profit. And I have guests on my show because I want you, the proto-entrepreneur, the entrepreneur in embryo, maybe, as you think of starting another business, right? You've already got one going, and you're thinking of another one that your eldest son might be really good at helping you with. We want to encourage you in that direction, and so I have in the studio two young entrepreneurs. They run a car dealership that I, in God's providence, chanced. Notice the contradiction there, but in God's providence, chanced to go into the other day for a chat, and we had a long conversation about the economy. And I thought, well, here are a couple of men who are very realistic. Chris Sitterding is one of the owners, and his friend Chris Fries is the other one. These are old world names. Sitterding is a German name, and Fries is Dutch. It comes from the world of Friesland, which is a part of Holland, and but they have a very American perspective. They are Americans. They are a couple of chums from Pepperell High School in Rome, Georgia. They went and studied at Jacksonville State in Alabama, and a couple of years ago started River City Car Exchange in Hickson. River City Car Exchange has a lot there by a couple of very busy intersection, a couple of major drugstores and gas stations, and an Aldi food store at that intersection as well. Chris, welcome to, this is Chris Sitterding. Welcome to Nuganomics.com.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Well, the reason you're on my show today, because I think my listener wants to have what might be a kind of in the trenches view of the world of credit. Your field, the car dealer field, in many times is just it kind of has a false front. Many dealers are banks dressed up as car dealerships. They make their living off of the loan. You are not in that category, but you serve many of the same people as other dealerships, such as I can't think of the names right offhand, but ones I have occasion to learn about. Tell us a little bit about your operation, and then I hope we can talk about the whole idea of credit and kind of the American way. How do things really work?
Okay. Well, I guess when we started, we had an idea and a business model that was about providing a job first and foremost. We both graduated at a time when there really weren't any more jobs out there, and we grew up under the premise that if you go to college, you graduate, I guess you're kind of going to be gifted a job, and that was always the right thing and the right what we were supposed to do. So we did that and graduated. Both of us looked for a couple years, couldn't find anything, so we decided to open our own thing. And when we did that, our business model was to do more volume and sell at a lower cost, so that we weren't, I guess an industry term would be, knocking people's heads off. And a lot of people are out there to get rich, and we really weren't trying to do that. We really just wanted to provide stable income for ourselves and not have to work for anybody. We were excited about the idea of doing it on our own and showing ourselves what we could do and what we were made out of.
Well, hold on right there. That's of interest to me. There's several things I would like to ask you about, but the first thing is the idea of not working for somebody else. Explain, if you're in the car business, what is it like to work as an employee for a large car lot? And then what do you have that's different than that?
It's funny. It's kind of not too much different than what we do now. It's a lot of hours, a lot of time, a lot of hard work. Always chasing a sale, always trying to get people in the door and provide yourself the opportunity to make money.
When you're a salesman, you have to look at the transaction from the perspective of the buyer.
Right.
That requires an active imagination that I think only recently have I understood how that imagination has to work. Can you talk a little bit about the job of selling a car to a stranger? How do you think of this transaction from that person's perspective? What kind of language helps, you might say, grease the transaction?
There's probably a lot of things that help grease the transaction. Probably to begin with is to let them walk around, look, and decide on something that they would like to happen themselves. And then you got to assess the person at that point in time and see, you find out a little bit of information as they're looking, as they're shopping. And then, of course, once you get them inside, you got to find out, the hard information. What type of consumer are they? What type of credit do they have? What are they really available to purchase? And then a lot of times that doesn't fall in line with what they want to purchase. And we are a company that we have secondary lending agents that provide a lot of the financing for these people, good credit, bad credit, no credit. And once we know what they want, once we know what they can have, we have to allow them to make that choice themselves and understand that what they want isn't what they can afford. A lot of times it is. It's always a pretty tough game on our end as well as theirs.
So you look at, let's say there's a young woman who comes onto the lot. She's driven by an older person, but presumably her mom. The two women get out of the car, and you're there in your perch, your desk, let's say, or Chris Fries is at his desk. He has the better view from the window, and you see them walking around.
You get a much better view, by the way.
Yeah, and an office all painted in red, and so you say, okay, here. How long do you let this girl and her mom wander the parking lot, looking at the sticker prices and so on? Do you want to save them time by saying, hey, let's figure out what you're worth up front, and here are the 6 cars you can buy with that general fact base, or here are the 2? How do you make that shift from from fantasy to reality?
I like to give them time because I don't want to be too aggressive. We don't want to come off that way. We're pretty laid back guys, and we want to give people the opportunity to see what we have. And then, fairly quickly though, we do go approach them and introduce ourselves, let them know who we are, what kind of programs we have, and then find out what they're interested in.
Well, when I was there having this sort of economic analysis chat with you, a couple of women came in, a daughter who had just been employed at Amazon. I don't remember the details of the financing, but she had maybe $300 or $400 saved up for a down payment. And you asked her, or Chris, your partner, asked her what her earnings were, and did she have a pay stub to show? And I don't know that she had one yet. She hadn't gotten paid, but she was needing a car to get to work. And her mother, the woman with her, was trying to make it so that her own life was not going to be inconvenienced by having to carry the girl perhaps a long distance to her employment. So tell about, maybe you could describe your interactions with visitors like that.
It's pretty typical that we get a situation like that. A lot of our lenders, what they need, and it's kind of, I guess it's the entire market right now for lending on secondary lending. But a lot of times they need to see that a person has a job, has time on that job, can prove that they're not being paid under the table, that taxes are being paid and taken out, and then they need to see things like phone bills, which is proof of the fact of where they live. There's a lot of what's called STIPs or stipulations that each customer has to jump through, and it's a pretty difficult process for the customer and for the dealer as well.
And we're talking about customers who aren't ready to write the check right there.
Absolutely, absolutely.
At River City Car Exchange, how many people can just come in? Like my listener is probably someone who could buy a car by just writing a check. How many people are of that category?
It's definitely in the smaller percentage. It's interesting to note that I've kind of been paying attention to Chattanooga and this economy and the local economy of it, Hamilton County, maybe a little greater all the way out to Cleveland or whatnot. But people don't really have expendable money right now. I don't see a lot of people coming in with significant down payments. They want to make true investments towards transportation, even though they realize it's something they need and it's something they want. But I mean, most people are coming in saying, hey, can I put $300 down and leave with a car? And it's a difficult job to say no and explain why. I mean, we have a pretty big percentage that are asking questions like that. We've got a pretty big percentage that $1,000 is the standard. We offer cars for every buyer on every level. I mean, if you want to come in and pay $800 and get a car, we have a couple of those. If you want to come in and buy a $30,000 BMW, we have one of those. But it's mainly the guy that we're doing business to is a $1,000 down customer who wants a weekly or biweekly payment.
And what is the difference between the customer's total if he pays a check, the whole thing right there, and buys on time? What's the difference in the payment?
There's thousands of dollars. I mean, a lot of deals. I could sell a car today. You walk on the lot today, and you say, hey, I'm going to write a check. You're serious about it. I'm looking to make a $1,000 profit. I think that's a legitimate profit. Sometimes $1,200. We have a couple of employees. We have 2 locations. The guy that comes in, I've got say a $7,000 car. I'm going to mark it up $1,200, make $1,000. The guy that needs the financing, I mean, sometimes there's $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 worth of difference on a regular basis.
Say that again. I didn't catch that.
The individual that's looking to finance a car, a lot of times there's a spread of $4,000 in fees and interest to $8,000 in fees and interest.
So fees and interest, which cover the risk, right? The interest payments, interest is demanded on the loan because of the risk, and the greater the perceived risk of a particular borrower, the more that spread is going to be.
You said it. Keyword is risk. These are risk-based financiers, and they rate customers based on their history, like anybody else. But it's even more so. There's a matrix that they've got they've been using over 40 years, collecting data.
What's it called?
Do you know the name of it? I can't say that I know the name of the matrix, but I know this company, that one of the many companies that we do business with has this, couple decade-long matrix that they've been collecting data.
How do you, is that an interface on a computer? You open a form and you have to manually enter data from the...
We enter a very small amount of data, and then they take that data, look at it, and rate each customer.
Wow, with just a few facts, and that's based on what the person's address, the
length of time at their address, length of time. If they're regularly if they're moving on a regular basis and they're not stable, if they've got, not all of our customers are bad people or bad customers or unworthy credit customers, but even if I go in there, if you go in there, if somebody with an 800 credit score goes in there, there's still a story.
Is that good or bad? 800.
It's good score, great score. There's still a story to be told by your credit, and that they can look at your time in a location or your time making payments and all. I mean, it's the standard thing, but it's a little bit different when you're dealing with risky customers.
You're hearing Chris Sitterding, who is a co-owner with his friend Chris Freese of River City Car Exchange. Now, Chris, we're talking about how credit risk adds into the price of a car, a used car that that he may sell for $7,000 has $2,500 built in to cover the risk, the loan, the paperwork, and so on, and the actual car may be, he may have bought it for $4,000.
A lot of times it's, we really don't, like I said, when we started this business, didn't get in there to mark cars up. So we still kind of use a lot of our old ideas, but, you know, we've realized that making $1,000 on a car sometimes just doesn't cover it. When you're selling more cars and you're doing less profit, then you're taking bigger risks because you're dealing with more people, more cars to go wrong, more things to go wrong with cars. And they are secondhand. We do our best to find the best ones. But another thing we've run into is the legal side of it. We've dealt with a lot of customers that in this area, I think it's part of the culture, and I don't mean to say anything negative, but it's just something that we've ran into, is a lot of people think that the way to get their car paid off is to sue you, and then basically you have to buy the car back and then give it to them. It's kind of a hairy situation. So we've realized that a lot of our original model doesn't work as well as we thought it would, and we've had to adapt in a very short time.
So how did your original model didn't count on being sued by dissatisfied customer?
Or people demanding things be fixed 6-8 months, a year later. You know, I mean, it's
Like what, for example? Be specific.
not too long ago we had a couple come in and their CV axle broke on a Honda with 220,000 miles that they had purchased with 160. You know, they drove 50,000 miles in a matter of 18 months. They come back in, they're like, hey, we're basically gonna sue you if you don't fix our CV axle. I mean,
But you're not a garage.
we're not a garage. It's an 18-month-old deal. It's a $150 fix, and a lot of people don't get what the term as is means. And like I said, we're out here trying to find the best vehicles possible. These are realistic things that happen to go wrong, normal maintenance, normal wear and tear on vehicles. So we've had to adapt, I guess is kind of where I'm going. We've had to adapt and realize what we need to sell cars for, what's a true expectation to get out of it, where you're not taking advantage of the customer, but yet you're making enough money to survive and help with future headaches.
Well, let me ask you this. Let me ask this question of Chris Fries. Here's the question: you have a price on a car in your lot, and adjust the mic here, and let's say it's a nice four-door sedan, and let's say you have it for $7,000. That price. Let's say, how does that price change if your customer is very high risk, or someone who comes in to pay cash? If my listener comes in ready to buy that car for his daughter, it's a $7,000 car. Does he get a discount, or is that price? Does he haggle over the price and you come down, but you keep the price for the one who's got the bad credit score and the prospect of not paying?
Yeah. Well, all of our pricing, we can cater to both people, and the people that come in and they're going to write a check and they're going to pay cash on something and complete the transaction in one deal, we're more likely to haggle with the price a little bit, and we have a little bit more of a wiggle room.
Or let them haggle with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, believe me, if I can, I want to keep the price the same and make the same amount across the board. But they have the power and ability to get the pricing a little bit differently. And the people that have to come in and do secondary financing, they can still haggle the price, because ultimately we're there to sell cars, and we don't want to lose a sale to a competitor, and we want to ultimately give good cars to good people. But we have to make sure that it's right for us and right for the customer as well. I mean, we are the small guy. We are two entrepreneurs that opened up a small, humble business, and we don't have the ability to mark up. We have the ability to mark up vehicles $3,000 and $4,000 like some of the other bigger car lots, but we don't. So we don't have that kind of flexibility to knock off that amount.
Well, who are some of your competitors in Chattanooga?
I mean, we have other small dealerships, used dealerships, and then we have a lot of the big ones that sell new cars, and our competitor is everyone.
So let's say Long of Chattanooga sells a BMW. You mentioned that you have a BMW on your lot. It's used, of course, but
sure.
I think Long probably sells over on Auto Row off Chapman Road. It sells a used BMW. Is he able to make a greater profit than you on a very similar car?
No, not necessarily. They have more flexibility as far as financing available. I think that we're very competitive in what we have to offer. But no, I mean, we're still able to mark up as much as they are. But, the consumer knows whenever they go to a new car dealership, the chances are they're going to be paying a little bit more for a vehicle than going to a smaller one.
Now, Chris Fries, you mentioned that there's a second River City Car Exchange. Where is that, please?
It's over on Hickson Pike. It's 4041 Hickson Pike. It's actually across from Access Pharmacy, in between Access Road and Ashland Terrace.
Well, that's kind of an odd placement. It seems like you'd want to have one in Hickson and then the other one maybe in Ooltewah and separate them.
You're right. That was actually our original location that we started off in 2011, and it's been great. And it's actually been it's enabled us to move to the new dealership and get to a place that has better volume as far as on 153, and we've really been using the old dealership as a place for reconditioning. Having a mechanic there, having a detail guy, making sure that our cars are frontline ready, and that's the place that they stay before they move to the new lot.
Your new lot is much more vibrant place. It places better. When I drive past the older lot, it's kind of in a dead area. It doesn't have quite. I think maybe it has something to do with surrounding businesses. Used resale shop. There's a storage place, and
sure.
Somehow it doesn't have quite the panache as the new one. So when did you open the second lot?
Opened the second lot right around the new year of 2013. We've actually we inquired about it. I believe right around November, and we finally got it open at the new year, and it's been great. And like you said, the Highway 153 location, I mean, we have double the traffic count that comes in front. I mean, we're at a major intersection, and there's a reason why a lot of the big businesses are on that road, just because of the traffic count. It's easier. People know Highway 153 better than they do Hickson Pike, and ultimately the reason why we chose Hickson was because there's not a lot of dealerships out there.
Chris, you studied business at Jacksonville State University?
That's correct.
Yep. What city is that in?
Jacksonville, Alabama.
Okay. Was the university education worth the expense? I know it's often called an investment, and I'm very skeptical of spending money for university. Was what you got there, was it a bachelor's degree of business?
Yes, sir.
Was it worth the investment, and did it really help you in what you're doing now?
Yes, it was worth the investment, and yes, I do use it today. Like Chris stated earlier, when we grew up, we were always told, hey, go get a college education. There will be a job waiting for you. I think our mindset, changed once we were getting closer and closer to graduation and searching out those jobs. But the business school was excellent at Jacksonville State. I learned a lot, and my idea of college is you're not being taught the actual curriculum there. I mean, you're gaining the knowledge, but more so for college, you're actually being trained how to learn and how to adapt into jobs and how to be social and how to use networking to your abilities, because I think that's ultimately what it's going to boil down to in order to get a job. It's going to be who you know and how you network.
But you didn't go to business school to learn how to get a job.
No, absolutely not. I mean, you went to business school to gain a skill. You go to business school to, ultimately, yes, to get a job. But, you need to know certain things about business. Ultimately, I knew that I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I made that happen. So, yes, I do use my education, and I think that it was well worth it. I don't know if it could. I don't know. I think that people need to go to school these days for a different reason other than wanting to get their own job. I think that they need to go and to try to make a difference in the world.
You're hearing Chris Fries, and we're also chatting with Chris Sitterding, his colleague at River City Car Exchange. We're talking about the credit economy. This is David Toulis at Nugonomics.com, and we'll be back. David Toulis.
Afternoon. An isolated shower, thunder shower pops up. Pretty widely separated lines.
Did I throw you? When I pointed at time, you had to.
No. I knew it. I was just trying to think.
Storms more likely for the midweek highs.
Well, okay.
Check out CVS Pharmacy. Attention Medicare members with
Let's see.
diabetes.
We
CVS
mentioned
Pharmacy
the
continues
lawsuit,
to accept
Harold.
Medicare Part B coverage for
That's just-
diabetes testing
did any of these
supplies.
ever go to
Come by your
trial?
local CVS Pharmacy today.
Seriously?
And on WDEF News,
I mean, with what all?
meteorologist Matt Report.
Seriously?
The Man Radio Station.
That's just how the.
I don't want to sound negative, but I'm sitting here kicking myself thinking that's the case. I mean, there's a realistic side to it, and it's a scary side to doing business.
What what you're doing is if we talk about that, that makes you a real person. I mean,
Frustrated with the high cost of
you
phone
have to
service?
be a
Do
couple
you
of real
belong
guys
with the
here, okay?
freedom
Not
to
just
work with a locally
salesmen
owned
and you're a
and
real
experienced phone and
entrepreneur.
internet
So hearing
company
about your-
that understands the needs of
hearing
small
about the hard
business?
part.
I'm David Snyder.
It's funny,
owner
I
of
mean, it's not funny,
Redtail.net
it's
and
terrifying
Allstate.net
because,
in Dayton.
you know, we've
My
never been in
companies have
trouble.
been
We're,
providing
you know, you
small
get pulled
businesses
over
with high-speed internet
and
for
you
the
get a
last
ticket.
17
That's about
years.
as much trouble as we've ever
Redtail.net,
gotten
our
into.
new
So the
cloud-based
fact
phone
that, you know,
service, is
a
currently
police
used
officer
by
comes in and
hundreds of
serves you
local
with
small
papers,
businesses that are
and then
part
you
of
just
our
go to
local
court
economy.
and you're
From
standing
the
there in
small
front of a
mom-and-pop
judge who has,
retailer to some of the
you know, at that
area's
moment,
largest
you've
industries,
never been in
to
trouble.
Bryan
This
College,
judge is,
Redtail
it's like a
is the service
terrifying
that is
moment.
saving money and making our
That's not
local
section
economy
two.
more
It's just,
efficient. I love to see
it's
my
the small
customers
things.
succeed.
Huh?
My
Small-
company
yeah, small
has helped hundreds of other small businesses accomplish better
I mean,
service
how
and profits
I mean,
as they
how many
serve
nights
their
did we
local
were we
community.
sick
Let's
and
see
couldn't
if
sleep because we're
Redtail.net
dealing with
can
this,
help
not
your
knowing
business. Look us
are
up
we going to
at
have to give these people
Redtail.net
thousands of
today.
dollars that we may not necessarily have to give to them because we're trying to grow our business. We're trying to invest in ourselves. There's ups and downs. There's days we get paid. There's days we don't.
Petroleum Card Services of Chattanooga has been serving small business since 1995 and would be
I mean, I would
happy
like
to
to,
explain how to save money when
you
your
know, convey it
customers
that
use
way.
Well,
If you are
also I
interested in
want
holding
to.
on to
I've
those
got
vehicles
a
and
comment.
credit card fees, call
Debt
298-1294
makes men past oriented.
for a
Debt
free
free men
analysis.
command the
That's
present and the future.
298-1294.
You're dealing with people
Ask
who
for
are
Bob.
past oriented.
298-1294.
And I want to
Petroleum
talk
Card
to you about
Services.
the American economy, and you have a bleak analysis. I kind of want to. How can you prosper? How can my listener prosper in? Well, I'm projecting bad times.
I can give you my opinion on it, but I definitely don't have any answers how to fix it.
No, I want your opinion. I want your gut.
CBS News. Steve
And
Keith,
the
and a
point
military
that you need to make is that even though we see these dark things, our job is to serve the customer. And also, you need to make a point of saying how you're different from other car lots. And it's not just service, it's not just friendly. What is
Marlon
it?
McCormick with KRLD Radio.
Some of those victims
Yeah, that's
will
also
be in the
your
courtroom
advertising.
to
Your advertising
testify.
should make you
The
separate
government
from
has
the
said
other
they
people.
plan
It's
to
often
call
it's just a
nearly
word, it's an
300
idea.
witnesses.
It's something
Hassan has said he
that's
will call only two.
that's
We're
true.
not sure if
That
includes
is a concept
himself.
that's
The
completely
judge
different
did
from what
order
everybody
that
else is
during
saying
opening
about
statements, he
their
would not be allowed to
So,
testify.
Hassan has never denied carrying out the attack. The
bad
last
economic
13
times
days.
kind of gloom. Your
In
partner's got a
Boston,
kind of
jury has
gloomy
just begun deliberations on
analysis.
the Whitey Bulger racketeering case.
But how do you still have to prosper? You still have to find the customer. You still have to
A spokesman says former
gotta
make that person
President
come back a
Bush
second time for another
just
car
a
for
day after
his
an
uncle or
arterial
his
blockage
aunt
was
or his
discovered
son.
during an annual physical. Surgeons used
And,
a stent to
use-
clear that blockage
I
for
never buy new.
67-year-old
Last car,
president.
new car I had was
Described
when I
as
got
high
married.
spirits and ready to return home. He's expected to
Or not
leave the
married,
Dallas
but,
hospital tomorrow.
The United States has evacuated all
I've bought
non-essential
used cars.
embassy workers from Yemen and is urging other
Because
Americans to leave.
used cars,
The risk
and
of
this is
attack by
this is an
al-Qaeda
investment
considered
point
high.
you need to
A
make.
drone strike in Yemen today killed
If you buy a
four
used
suspected
car,
terrorists.
you're not paying for the loss of
Counter-terror
depreciation.
official
You're not paying for that
People who
depreciation.
take the step.
Someone else
to
is taking that
contemplate the murder
loss,
of innocents
right?
for a political
Cars
cause.
lose half their value in the
If we
first
don't take them off
year.
the battlefield,
Sure.
wherever they are, they'll come
Cars
back.
you have already suffered that. So my listener is not losing money by buying a new car.
Newell has a long-standing
It's a piece of
dispute with the
investment.
Ross Township
You can offer
supervisors. They
that.
condemned
Tell my
his
listener,
property.
hey, your listener needs to think about saving his capital.
owned property at the hearing, he said, no,
He needs to
they
buy a
stole it
used
from
car.
me. Problems
If he
with
doesn't
the
know
computer
someone
check-in
who
system have caused
he can buy a car from
headaches.
privately, then he needs to cover it,
I
right?
think along with the point that cars, you know, there was a time when they cut out 100,000 miles, but they're built to last much longer. So, I mean, I think that goes along with that same point that people are maintaining because they know from a financial standpoint, you have to keep it longer if you maintain it. The next buyer of the vehicles will typically get a little bit better.
I suggest this be something, but what do you say, okay? Make that point that people know, the people recognize his bleak, kind of bleak view, and they're maintaining their cars more. They're preventive maintenance. And they don't want to run into the ground because it is a capital decision, it's a capital act.
People are concerned. People are concerned, so they make these decisions based on that concern or fear.
Alex's case is that he has never failed a test, never been suspended before.
His suspension, as it stands now, is
The Washington
211
Post sells for
games.
$250 million.
Washington now is down 128 points. This is
Millionaires feel broke. That was news
Okay,
last
we'll
week.
continue with you a bit longer, and then you need to swap out. I'll give a signal. When I'm asking a question, we swap. You swap. Okay.
live from Sun.
Hi, this is David Toulis. You saw the story about the Washington Post selling for a few pennies to a wealthy national economy entrepreneur, Jeff Bezos, buying the Washington Post for $250 million. That's a small, a little sinecure, a little stipend, little extra cash he had in his billfold to buy that newspaper. He says it won't affect the coverage, but you can be sure that the Washington Post will continue to sell the idea of national economy, to sell the idea that we are all dependent on Uncle Sam, and that Uncle Sam is really, he cares for us, and he wants good things for us, and he cares about our children. Look how he's caring for our old people with his drug benefit and his Social Security apparatus and Obamacare. We have to thank him for that. But there is a kind of paralysis in the country, and I'm talking today with two small entrepreneurs. They have a small business. They sell cars on their lot. These are a couple of high school friends who went to Pepperell High School in Rome, and they went to college together. They studied business together, and they're going to make a go of it. And first they tried to find employment, and either it was very difficult or something that an engagement that they did not prefer, and so they began. They borrowed River City Car Exchange into existence, and I was told by Chris Sitterding in a long chat we had a few days ago that that's been paid off, and so it's a small outfit on Highway 153 there at is it Gad Road?
Yes, sir.
At Gad Road, and with a couple of big drugstores, an Aldi food store, and a sign shop, all kinds of places of business there in Hickson. And we heard from Chris Sitterding, Chris Fries, that there seems to be a lot of clouds in the future. Your colleague has perhaps a less optimistic view of the economy than you do. But what do you think is? Tell us a little bit about the American way of doing business, and especially the extension of credit. You deal with a lot of customers who have no money down,
Sure.
And they're not great credit risk sometimes, but you're still trying to serve them.
Yeah, the cars that we are offering, one are secondary cars, they're used cars, and we have realized that when the economy dropped, people's money got affected, their credit got affected, and so we want to give people an opportunity to get good quality cars and also get financing back. The banks realize that, hey, you know what, in order for me to make money, I have to start lending out money again. And so the secondary finance companies that we have, they enable people to do that. And my business partner, Chris Sitterding, he was actually talking about it earlier that, they're trying to make smart investments these days by getting different stipulations for the people that need to buy. And used cars are a great investment, and we really try to tell people and urge people to buy used cars just because they've already depreciated, and these vehicles.
Explain that.
Whenever you buy a new car, as soon as you sign the dotted lines, as soon as you drive it off the car lot, it depreciates in value. So being that our cars are a little bit higher mileage, they're right around 10 years old, maybe a little less, they've already taken that hit in value. So the people that buy these vehicles, they've already, the people that bought the vehicles brand new, they've already taken that hit as far as depreciation. So the people that are buying our vehicles, they're using it more of as an investment. And so, cars, they're not. Back in the old days, people thought that cars just kind of crapped out at 100,000 miles. And nowadays, they're built to last. They will go and go and go. And we have, for instance, we had a 97 Ford F-150 that was a V6 model, and it had almost 500,000 miles on it. And most people would think, wow, that is insane to have a gas burner engine go that far. But, it goes to show that if you really maintain your vehicles and keep up with the maintenance and really take care of it and treat it as an investment, then they'll go the long way. And people ultimately need to be saving their money these days.
Well, I think that's a point my listener appreciates, and I'm fully with you, Chris Fries, about buying, avoiding buying a new car. I own cars that have all gone almost or past 200,000 miles. I try to maintain them, though I think since I'm an entrepreneur right now and not have as much cash flow as I used to, I've kind of neglected maintenance. I know I lost 2 tires on a van recently because I didn't rotate them, just was kind of inattentive to this. But my listener is aware that problem of the depreciation, and so you find if you can't buy privately, you go to a reputable lot where the owners buy cars. They're bought at an auction, is that right? How does that work exactly? And how much can you determine about the quality of a given car that comes toward you?
Well, a lot of times the vehicles are bought at auction. A lot of times they're traded in by an individual that wants to upgrade. And a lot of times we buy from just the individuals that are selling them, like Craigslist or eBay or Auto Trader, that kind of stuff. But as far as the auction is concerned, what we do is we go and all the auctions that we deal with, they're dealer only, so that means the public cannot come and buy. And a lot of times dealers like to sell other dealers good cars. So we actually go there and we have an opportunity to check out all of these vehicles. We have a list that's been given to us. We go through, turn it on, test drive it, check the oil, all the different fluids to make sure that it's a good car. And the auction has different things that can protect us as buyers. Like for instance, vehicles that sell underneath $2,500. Well, there's a light system. There's red, green, and yellow. And the ones that are sold for underneath $2,500 are a red light. That means that something could be wrong with them, and that chances are there is something wrong. And that's why they're being sold so inexpensively. But then there's vehicles that will go green light, that means ride and drive, and that are going to be sold over $2,500, and they're more likely to be a better car. And then the yellow light means that there's caution, that a truck has had altered suspension, or that there's been an airbag, or that there's a little, a tick in the motor or something like that. So we have opportunity to go through and check these vehicles out and make an educated financial decision right there on the spot on the auction block before we buy it.
So the cars that you sell, you actually have some hands-on time with.
Absolutely.
It's not just a bulk thing. We'll just check this one, and that one over there, and then you drop off with them. You have some.
Yeah, and a lot of times in the auction, you don't really have the opportunity. You do have the opportunity to go and check these vehicles out, but a lot of times the deals that happen are right in front of your face. So you can check out 10 of these vehicles that you really want to buy, but if they all go through the auction block and the price is wrong for you to buy, if they're way too high, then you're not going to buy them no matter how good of a car they are anyways, because there has to be enough room to to make a dollar on them.
I was reading a great analysis this morning about debt, and there is a comment that to the effect that debt makes men past-oriented, and debt-free men command the present and the future. I think that's a great idea. Your marketplace, almost everybody, very few customers pay with cash. My listener might be one of those who does.
Sure.
Or with maybe 1 or 2 payments. But most people have debt. They're past oriented. Here they buy a car from you and they make payments. How long do people make payments on a car?
It can really vary. It varies how much people have to put as a down payment. We have secondary lending that will go all the way out to 54 months. So.
Wait, how many years is that? Do the math.
4 years is 48 months. So about 4.5 years. It really depends on how much you have to put as a down payment, but as far as that's concerned, and what we're financing will obviously be the remainder. So if we're selling a $4,000 car and you have $1,500 to put down, then you're only going to be financing $3,500 plus your taxes. And
when people buy a car from River City Car Exchange, do they make the payments to you, or are they making the payments to the lender through you? Who are you in that transaction?
We do both. We have very few cars that we do in-house financing with, but for the majority of the people that want and need secondary lending or primary lending for that matter, we arrange the contracts and they end up paying the financial institution.
You're hearing Chris Fries, who runs with his partner Chris Sitterding, River City Car Exchange. Well, and let me ask you a bit further about this whole idea of debt makes you past-oriented.
Sure.
How do you suppose that that's true? If you have debts, how do you look at the future?
Well, if you have debt, you're always playing a catch-up game, and so you're always trying to budget, and you're trying to figure out what you can do in order to not put yourself in a financial strain. You're trying to make the best decision possible, and ultimately, the people that have debt, a lot of times they have a great concept, and well, you know what? A lot of times they don't have a great concept on financials, and so therefore we're there to help them make a better decision. You know, I don't ever want to do in-house financing a car that someone's going to struggle. I don't ultimately sell someone a car and finance a deal if I know that they're going to get repoed. I want to make sure that our investment is safe and that the vehicle is a good vehicle in order to make it through the car note, so we don't have complaints. And we want to make sure that the vehicle that they want and the vehicle that they choose is going to be ultimately a good one.
Well, I had the sense of the young girl I met and her mom in your lot that here, and she explained. I was there. She was talking with you or your colleague about how they were going to pay for a car that they were just now starting to look at. But when you have debt, you are past oriented because you constantly have this obligation from the past on something that you're already consuming.
Sure.
And if a note goes for 4 years, here you've had a used car that's already gone, let's say 150,000 miles. You've added 40 or 50,000 on it, and you're still paying on the note. You are somehow dragged. There's something like you're dragging a block behind you, a very large block and you can't. You're not maneuverable. You're not flexible. You can't move left or right rapidly. And well, how would you advise my listener in this same context of having a business? Should he try to get his own liquidity and not have a debt? Should he have investors? What about you? If you want to expand, let's say you want to expand to Ooltewah, is debt the right thing, or is there some way you can have capital that makes you look forward, be forward thinking, kind of controlling the future, and not be past oriented? That's a bunch of questions.
Yeah, I definitely see both aspects of it, and I think some debt is good debt. I think that it's a necessary debt in order to work in the U.S. or in order to buy in the U.S. The first time that we opened up our River City Car Exchange, that was the first time that Chris and I were ever rewarded for having great credit. And as soon as we opened up, we were actually able to, people were able to lend us about $500,000 anytime we wanted to. So, I think nowadays, having debt is good debt. Having debt, there's certain debt that is good debt, and then there's certain debt that is bad debt. But if I had to do it all over again, I would have debt in order to start off, but I would start building up capital so that way I could get investments in the future and obviously minimizing my debt. So I think it's a necessary evil in some ways, but in other ways I don't.
Well, a lender has a different relationship with you and your partner Chris than an investor. An investor, if one of the themes of our show at Nugenomics.com is we need to have local sources of capital that's not lending.
Sure.
And our thinking is that if we can have wealthy Chattanoogan's, Hamilton Countyans invest in local businesses, they'll be willing to wait for their profit. They want to make a profit, but they'll be patient, and there's no lock on an amount. They have, because they're not lending but investing, they have the prospect of much more than say 5 or 10% per year, which would be the terms of a loan. They have the prospect of a much greater percentage, especially if you prosper and expand. Right. So that's the idea of local capital. But we don't. Does that exist today? Do you know of that? Could you find an investor to give you $500,000 for River City Car Exchange, or is that just out of the question right now?
I don't think it's out of the question. I don't know very many people that I could go up to and ask to loan me $500,000 and to believe in me. I think that times are tough right now. But in the same right, I do think that there are people out there that want to expand their wallet, and they want to help the local economy, and they want to have their name attached to something that's successful. I think that the best way to do that is to help out a couple young men that are entrepreneurs in Hickson, Tennessee. But no, on a serious note, I think that having investors would be the way to go, just because you do have that flexibility, and ultimately the investors know that there's a risk to be taken, and they let you do your thing. And I know obviously there's going to be parameters and guidelines, but it would be a lot loose of a relationship, and we'd be able to do what we need to do in order to make it succeed.
Well, Chris Reese, thank you for chatting with me here at Nuganomics.com.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I've got a question for Chris Sitterding, your partner. These are two men, young entrepreneurs, high school pals from Pepperell High School in Rome, who went to college together, studied business, kicked around trying to find work, and they couldn't. And so they began in 2011 River City Car Exchange, which has a couple of branches, and there's an interest they have in expanding their operation maybe within the next year. Chris, tell me what I'd like to ask you this question about debt. Debt makes men past-oriented, and debt-free men command the present and the future. How can my listener think about capital without having debt? How can he think about expanding his operation but not having debt created by a bank or a lender or a credit union?
That's a good question. I wish I had the answer to it. I think you got to take the risk, and you got to take the chances to start the business, or if you're wanting to get into that, into a situation like what we did. You gotta step up to the plate and say, hey, I'm ready to do this. If it takes getting debt, then I know the direction I'm going to go. If it takes the money that you have and putting yourself right up to the limit of saying, hey, I don't want to take on any new debt, but I've got some money saved up. I'm going to try to start my own thing, produce my own money, bring in tax dollars for the local economy. Then it's all within the individual, and you have to decide what you want to do, and if it's the right decision for you. It's tough. It's very, very hard to be a small business owner in this day and age.
When you started River City Car Exchange, did you have the sense that you were investing in yourself, or did you somehow feel like you were suddenly beholden to the?
No, absolutely. I felt like I was investing in myself and in a best friend, and we come from good families, so we had a lot of support there. We've constantly supported each other through the ups and downs. There's been a lot of good, there's been a lot of tough, and I'm thankful that I've had the person beside me that I have to get to where we are and to stay on track to where we're going.
I don't remember what you told me. When you began River City Car Exchange, did you two men borrow on your credit cards, or did you as an organization go to a lender?
We had worked for quite some time, and this is it falls right into place of not wanting to work for somebody else. We had a pretty interesting job with a boss we didn't care too much for, but we did pretty well. We worked hard, we made a lot of money, and we saved it. And we were fortunate enough to have some assets and some things that we could sell and take that risk and invest in ourselves. And that was the biggest thing, was that we knew we were doing it.
To what percentage were you when you started? To what percentage were you capitalized? How much of the money that you needed did you actually have in hand when you started?
85%.
Well, that's terrific. That's a real advantage. I guess so you're investing in yourself. You're investing in yourself in the context of selling cars to people, and you express kind of a shock that the people that you have to serve have these financial problems. And why tell me, why are Americans so with so little padding financially? Why is that?
I don't know. I just know that that's what I see every day. And it's funny, it kind of goes hand in hand with investing in ourselves too, that now we're in that same boat of having less and less padding to open a business, run a business, and try to make money. So it's funny, we're in the same boat as the customer, and a lot of times, it's just trying to figure it out. But
why do you feel like you don't have any padding as a business?
Because it's all tied into the business. So much of it is tied into the business.
Is there any way that your car dealership can save up for another lot, let's say, or how do you save money and put it aside in your business?
Well, you're always trying to grow, so that's a battle that you're trying to figure out every single day that you're there. You're trying to grow the business to possibly do things like that, possibly to go in new directions, add new locations, but you're also trying to we started with one type of car. We've grown to a much better type of car. Less mileage, less age. We grew to a nicer facility so that people could feel like they were getting new car dealership treatment when they walked in the door. We're always trying to continue our education of the business, our education of what makes cars work and not work. And it all takes money. So while you're trying to save to do bigger and better things, you're still having to do the current and the present of growing and becoming better.
I think our listener would like to hear a little bit about the legal perils that you have come into, being you're in a public business, you're in a public intersection in Hickson, and people come in and they buy a car from you, and then they come back. I was just kind of shocked to hear you tell me that you had several lawsuits about over cars. Can you talk a little bit about how those went, what happened in them, what were the claims that were being made,
Well,
how you fought them?
a lot of it's just not understanding the term as is. And I don't want to, give off the wrong impression like we sell bad cars, but used cars are used and things can go wrong. Like I said and like Chris said before, we work very hard to find the best cars that we can. We put a lot of time and effort and spend our dollars into purchasing these cars. So we would never go intentionally purchase something that's going to tear up on somebody else. We wouldn't buy junk with our money to sell junk. That just doesn't make sense. But in a lot of these instances, it's just been people not understanding, the parameters of what they're getting. It is as is. It is sold as is. It's disclosed as is. And we work a lot of times side by side, hand in hand with these people to fix things. It's just sometimes there's demands. There's unrealistic expectations. We offer warranties on cars. We try to help out in every way we can.
What are the warranties on a used car lot? What do they look like?
We've got anywhere from 3 months to 4 years to, motor and transmission to bumper, unlimited mileage. There's a lot of options, for the guy that wants to spend $200 or the guy that wants to spend $2,000.
Well, that's very interesting. When we first met, we were chatting, and you struck. I had the sense that my own idea about the marketplace was very ideal. And I know that's why the listener comes to our show, because I have a kind of a view of the ideal of the marketplace, where it's always service. Here we have the car dealer. He's not trying to rip people off. He's there to serve a particular customer base. And you have found that the customers that want you to serve them are people who don't have credit history or very young or have maybe bad histories. And so you have the lending agency, which has kind of an office in your office to help out. Do you have a kind of a jaundiced and bitter view about the marketplace? Are you somehow tired of it?
Unfortunately, I'm not tired of it.
Where do you get optimism from?
Unfortunately, it seems to be the same thing day after day. We're a business. We have posted hours. We're open to anybody that wants to come in and look at these vehicles. They are good vehicles, but so many of the customers are people that have made poor decisions through the use of their credit. So many of them are people that don't have money, and it seems like, I don't know, 70% of our customers are, and I'm very appreciative of them. I don't mean to sound negative about that, but it seems like so many of them are the people that make it harder to get loans done, that make it harder to want to lend our money when we make decisions like that, because it's an investment. If we put our vehicle on the road and they decide not to pay for it, or if they leave it on the side of the road and we have to just randomly drive by and pick it up, then it's unfortunate when you see something like that, because that's our money, that's our hard-earned money that we worked really hard for and put out there on the street. So it's its own thing.
Chris Sitterding from River City Car Exchange. It sounds like you have to be a man of much patience in your field.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Chris, for joining me here at Nuganomics.com.
Thank you.
You've been hearing Chris Sitterding from River City Car Exchange in Hickson. My name is David Toulis, and we are here at Nuganomics.com. I'll be back in just a second.
You can listen to Copperhead Radio everywhere on your AM.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
910.
Do you have a business card yet, guys?
On the net,
we have
go to Copperhead1240.com.
Oh, we'll get one to you.
Well, I'd like to have
download TuneIn.
people I talk to.
Search for Copperhead.
I really didn't want to be negative. I just hope
No, you weren't. You were very realistic. Listen,
You can always follow us on Twitter.
Your average buyer is not
and like us
listening to my
at
show.
Facebook.com/Copperhead1240.
Other buyers,
So there you go. Whether you're listening on the radio or watching us on
Now you're a couple of real guys.
They
They really know how to say they know this business better than just people in your high school pals. And that's a great story. You're very honest. And that's, you're a salesman and you're very honest. So that's kind of,
hunting, fishing, NASCAR.
that's why I wanted you on my show, because I figured you got a real story to tell. And
Copperhead 12.
It's a
you're a
continuing
benefit to
story.
my listener, huh?
I said it's a continuing story, and we hope it's a long story.
I'm gonna have to say farewell. I need to sit down and I need to think
Small
for
business
my
that's
next
been open in the
segment.
Okay,
Chattanooga
yeah,
area
sure.
since
Chris, thank you
1970.
so much. Chris, thank you very much.
We
appreciate it.
For 4 generations.
I'm delighted to have had you come.
Shoes,
And,
boots, orthopedic
been,
build-ups, golf
very
gloves,
benefit to my
belts,
listeners.
holsters, wallets, purses, and a lot of
Yeah,
other
video
special
calls,
repair
that's
requests.
the
The bodies
best.
also carries genuine 100% leather
Did you like
belts
my shameless
and
plug?
you can even customize your own. Whether in military, police, fire, and paramedic discounts, Buddy thanks you for your service. Buddy Shoe Repair, 5221 Hudson Pike. This Italian cobbler has a peach of a wife. Open Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, 9 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Saturday, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Closed Wednesday and Sunday. Call 423-870-8911.
Okay, I need to get my
It's
phone.
warm and humid weather through the afternoon. An isolated shower, thunder shower pop up, but they'll be pretty widely separated. Highs into the upper 80s tonight. Muggy low 70 to 73, with scattered showers and storms more likely for the midweek. Highs into the mid and upper 80s. Check out CVS Pharmacy. Attention Medicare members with diabetes. CVS Pharmacy continues to accept Medicare Part B coverage for diabetes testing supplies. Stop by your local CVS Pharmacy today. And on WEDF News, Wallace Chief of your own.
The Man Radio Station. Hunting, fishing, NASCAR, Tennessee Talk, Southern Rock, Chicken Country. 1240 The Copperhead.
Eighth and mounting his own defense, Major Nadal Hassan, the Army psychiatrist accused of killing 13 people on the border with Texas in 2009, gave an opening statement to jururs. Reporter Marlon McCormick covering his trial.
Hassan said he did not want to deploy to Afghanistan and believed he should carry out acts of jihad. Hassan's opening statements were very brief, just a few minutes long. He stated that the 13 dead bodies will show that he was the shooter. And he stated that war is an ugly thing. He said he was on the wrong side of this war against Islam and that he switched sides.
A military prosecutor told the court Hassan was bent on killing as many soldiers as he could. Some of those wounded in the mass shooting are expected to testify during the trial. A military judge at Maryland's Fort Meade has cut the maximum possible sentence for Army PFC Bradley Manning from 136 years to 90. Duplications in some of the convictions, according to the judge. Manning was convicted in the WikiLeaks secrets case last week. The Boston jury now has the case of Wayne Bulger, the 83-year-old reputed crime boss accused of involvement in 19 murders. Prosecutors called him vicious, but CBS News legal analyst Ricky Kleeman says his lawyers painted a different picture.
The defense is asking for their kind of justice. They appealed to patriotism of the jurors. They told the jurors to have the courage to take their oath seriously, to stand up to government abuse. And they attacked the government for corruption, of course, that we've heard about the FBI.
Terror fears are high in Yemen. CBS's Cammie McCormick says some Americans have been hustled.
Here's reach.
The diplomatic personnel were flown to
716.
Ramstein, Germany on an Air Force plane. They left Sana'a at dawn. The Department of Defense says some of its personnel remain on the ground in Yemen to monitor the security situation. That includes a detachment from the Marine Security Force. The latest State Department alert calls the security threat level extremely high.
Drone strike in Yemen today killed 4 suspected Al-Qaeda members. A day after an annual physical found trouble, former President George W. Bush went to a Texas hospital and doctors implanted a stent in a blocked artery.
That procedure happened this morning at the Presbyterian Hospital. Apparently it went well. There were no complications. And the president expects to return home tomorrow.
Reporter Emily True with KRLD Radio. There's a gold auction today in Carson City, Nevada. All of gold coins and bullions. There's Alan Glover who's handling it.
It came from the estate of the late Walter Samasco Jr., who passed away here in Carson a year ago and left basically $7 million in gold coins in his house.
One batch has already been sold off. After taxes, the unexpected fortune will go to his only surviving relative, a cousin. Wall Street Dow's down 95. This is
Copperhead 240, Southern Rock, Chicken Country, Tennessee Talk.
The Man Radio Station.
Tennessee.
This is David Toulis with Movienomics.com. I'm trying to reach my contact with a phone call out of our studio. I'm hoping to learn a little bit more about the war of surveillance, the need that the common man has to have a private life, a private existence that is not known, that is not in fact knowable by the good people. And hold on a second. David Toulis. And so we have. I'm trying to get the phone to work here, and my. Just let me push this button again. Hold on, just a second. John Kozlowski, who is a programmer and a friend of mine in Cleveland, and he is. If he gets on the phone, we'll be able to talk about his work to create a secure email system, something he's been working on for quite some time. And I thought, since DEF CON has had its course in Las Vegas a couple days ago, that we would get some perspective on that. And
You've reached 42.
looks like I'm not going to be able to have our interview today. So, hold on a second. Well, I'm being told that John Kozlowski is trying to reach me, so we're playing on the phone. So let me just try this number again. Hold on. The question is, can you have a private life when you have total government surveillance? And what is a private life? What is having a life where people don't know your business? Is it because you're a criminal? Is it because you are a malefactor of some kind that you want privacy? Well, no, it really is because you are innocent. And in a...
You've reached 423.
If you are in a world where everything is public, that is the world of the savage. That is the world of the man who has no thoughts, who has no intimate relations, a man who has no past, who has nothing that's his own business. Everything is the public's business. And I would propose that local economy is offended by the presence of ears at every turn, vacuum cleaners that suction up every email, every phone call, every word said on a cell phone, every letter that is sent by the U.S. mail, and that your travels are monitored by your cell phone GPS system. And we have this sense that we don't belong to ourselves anymore. And I'm going to try this phone call one more time. Hold on. So is there a solution? And the man I hope to reach, if I can't reach him, we'll just have to call it God's providence for today. But he has been working on a secure system of email communication that prevents the apprehension of the metadata as well as the content of the communication, the PDF that you're sending along, the words in your letter, And this is important for.
You've reached 423.
This is important, especially for people who live under tyrannies. Think of people who live in, say, Syria or Libya, or even Robert Mugabe's Zimbabwe, where though it's a quite primitive place, there is a kind of totalitarian sense that we, the government, have oversight of you, the people, and we are going to monitor you as far as we are able to. A civilized man has a library. Okay, he has things that he's read. He has probably banned books in his library. I know I have some in mine. They're not banned, but they are they are potentially scandalous to some people with some different perspective than mine. But a man with his own ideas has private communications, and we want there to be private communications because of our common law understanding of law and of the relationship between the state and the family, the state and the church. These are sphere sovereignties. They have, if we want to use the word from Abraham Kuyper, these domains have their jurisdictions. They have their place under God, of course, and they have their authority. And you have problems and agonies and distress when any one of those parts of the world seek to control any of the other parts. And you have actions that are, you might call ultra vires, which is to say outside the view. Virus, I think, is Latin for view, and ultra vires is outside of. And when the state presumes to control the church, as it did during the medieval period, and that, which is a very interesting conversation on its own, but primarily we think of Rome as having control over the kings, but really it was really the other way around, according to reading I've been doing and lectures I've been listening to. When you have the state controlling the church, that's also not right. When the state controls the family and presumes to have authority over its members and its doings and its assets and its estates, well, that is a problem. So why do we want to have privacy? Why does local economy, with its personal relationships and its handshake agreements and its families who can see each other, business owners who see each other at the same prayer breakfast, at the same Chamber of Commerce, handshake events early morning, why does it need to have privacy? And it does because that is the way, because there are these spheres that have to be recognized by actors in the other spheres. And when you have a government that owns all the data that happens to cross a telephone line or the airwave to a satellite, and it has access to all that data, it has, you then have what in a totalitarian country such as the Soviet Union, you have government by telephone. And there's a book called The Fragrance of Oppression about the relationship of the church during times of persecution. And there's a discussion about the time of the liberalization in the Soviet Union of the Soviet communist state against the church. And there was an Office of Religious Liberty that would have been set up perhaps under the predecessor of Gorbachev, maybe it was Yeltsin or the one before him. And this office was intending to do good, but Herbert Schlossberg, the author of the book, points out that an interview that a high official of that agency gave, that in each time there was some good thing that was done, it was by an arbitrary phone call. So the phone call, even if it's bringing about a good thing, is always against the whole idea of the rule of law. In the Soviet Union, of course, the rule of law, there's a secret rule of law that's against Christian liberty and against the church, and then there's the constitutional protections of religion, which of course meant nothing at the time. And what we want to have is, we don't want there to be the phone call in the night, the knock at the door in the night. We want there to be people here in Hamilton County in Chattanooga who are free to be themselves and to know that their doings are free from supervision and surveillance. Of course, supervision means to view above, right? Supervision is when you are viewed as a child, and someone is looking over you to make sure you don't fall and hurt yourself. That's what supervision is, and it's called regulation. And there's so many people in the Republican Party in our day, in the Democratic Party, who believe in supervision. They believe in superintendency. That's a point, by the way, that I have written a good deal about at Nuganomics.com. We have Rick Smith, Dr. Rick Smith, in Hamilton County, who is the superintendent of schools. And the idea of superintendency is that his intention is superior to all the others, those of all the other people. A teacher in a classroom intends something, but Rick Smith, he superintends that person. His intention overrides the intention of the teacher. But of course, he is just a cipher as well. His superintendency is perhaps nominal, meaning in name only, because the operators of public education are not local at all. They are from very faraway places, and I think their ideas are probably hostile to yours. And I think we'll have to talk with John Kozlowski another day, and I'm sorry that I've whetted your expectation of hearing him, but he's just not reachable somehow at his phone number despite our arrangement. But there were a couple of remarkable deaths in the past few days that I wanted to mention to you that I've not said anything about. One is of Barnaby Jack, a man who died a week ago from very mysterious causes. He is someone who discovered that you can kill people by hacking or somehow monkeying with pacemakers and insulin pumps. And then there was a death that's caused quite a scandal of another man in the hacking world, Michael Hastings. He died in a car accident in which the car was roaring at very high speed, crashed, and then it exploded. And he's a man who I read in a kind of offhand way had a custom of driving very much like a grandmother. And so his death is very suspicious. And these are names of people in that field. And the question that John Kozlowski has brought up is, do we have to deal with the troll at the bridge? And that, of course, that troll is uncle, or are the agents of the good people in Washington and Baltimore and New York, the good people who mine all the data and who collect it in their gigantic vacuum cleaners. The troll is there to say you can't pass here without showing me all that's in your pockets. I want to be able to look at the lint in the pocket. I want to be able to look at your cell phone, download all your numbers, and you have in your backpack there a computer. You're going to have to give me the URL history on that, but that's all. I don't need anything more than that. I'll just take that for the past year. And he's going to want to know how much money you have, and he's not going to take any of it. Of course, he's a very gracious man. And in fact, you're very thankful that he's not taking your money. He'll let you pass. And the question is, do we have to deal with that grizzled, bulbous-eyed character with the hunchback at the bridge? And there are people who say that you don't have to, and they are the ones who provide secure internet services. And John Kozlowski, as far as I understand it, is working on a secure email program that lets you duck off the road before you get to that bridge and scurry down there along the bushes as the bridge abutment approaches, or as you approach the bridge abutment, and you hide from the troll, and then you swim the little gap in the creek there under the archway of that stone edifice at the top of which he stands, and you escape notice. And this is something that's been of great interest to me, and I'm a small investor. I'm a believer in local economy, and I've invested in this project, and I'm hoping to see results at some point. And but maybe it's dangerous to be that. Right? Maybe one should not support secure email, though I'm a supporter on principle as a matter of character. I wanted to mention something that I thought I was not going to have time for, but let me just say a couple things about some of our sponsors here at Nukenomics.com. Country Boys and Toys for car detailing here in Saudi Daisy. Chuck Giannunzio runs that place. It's right next to Saudi Feed and Seed, and he's a real character. You leave your car there for the day, and it comes back to you. He's not done repairs on it or anything, but he's made it look brand new. And of course, a car that looks new and is all clean runs better, right? Also, one of our advertisers is Alan Jones, who runs Advantage Printing in Brainerd. Advantage Printing, very good place to have your mail prep and mailing services handled, and your printing. And Hamilton Discount Pharmacy. When I drove by that shop on Lee Highway and Shallowford, I said, "Well, wow, here's a local economy actor." Because every time I come to a corner, I see a CVS and a Walgreens. There's a new CVS going up here in Saudi Daisy, there at the intersection of Harrison Lane, where there's already a Walgreens, and just nearby that is a Walmart. And I think, well, is there any competition to these gigantic drug chains? There seem to be everywhere in tandem at major intersections. And then there's Hamilton Discount Pharmacy. And I propose that if you buy your medications from either the East Ridge branch or the branch there on Lee Highway, you will save money on discount by buying from a discount pharmacist. Hemi Patel assured me that his prices are lower. People come to him shocked that they can buy medications for many percentage points less than from the big chains, who don't have to care too much about their customers. Also, Ducks, formerly known as Duct Busters. I was having a nice chat yesterday with Joan. She was asking me about my children and homeschooling, and she was apparently Joan Thompson at Ducks, or formerly known as Duct Busters, was once a homeschooler when it was illegal. So I was very cheered to hear that. Again, these are local economy actors, right? Local economy people. They want you, my listener, the listener here at Nukenomics.com, and Copperhead 1240 to be customers of theirs. Okay, to realize that they are there to serve you, just as I am. Also, if you run credit cards in your business, you'll want to deal with Petroleum Card Services, or have them deal with your credit card folks. Bob Benjamin, provides very low-cost machines for credit card transactions. And then David Snyder at revtel.net is a local phone company. And here you don't have to deal with Comcast and AT&T or EPB. You can have your phone service and your internet service through a local company that does not get millions and millions of tax dollars as some of these others do. EPB is a part of a boondoggle, and if you saw the front of today's Chattanooga Times Free Press, Ellis Smith, his business writer, has the front page today, and the headline is "Chattanooga Spending Millions on Boondoggle Wi-Fi." We've been talking about this for some time, and Drew Johnson, the former editor of the Free Press page of the Chattanooga Times Free Press, also has very sharply pointed out that government business, government commerce, is always a boondoggle, and it's a boondoggle because people who are assigning the spending of money don't have to personally deal with the ill results when the system they have built proves to be out of date or of too great capacity, or funded by the unwilling. And maybe you are one of the unwilling ones who has to pay for government in business. The story is about a Wi-Fi network that's apparently government exclusive. Efforts to get allow private users onto this Wi-Fi system were rebuffed. And the story, way on down, Ellis Smith finally puts a prospective total, and he's quoting Mr. Groen, the city councilman, and that figure is $750 million to complete a system across the city that up until now has been rarely used and has spotty reception, according to the councilman, Mr. Groen. And it's a very interesting idea, and we have to face the fact that if we believe that government is qualified and competent to provide internet services or many other services, we're going to have to just accept such programs. There is no accounting for the cost of this network that's supposed to connect all downtown operations of city government. Chris Anderson is another city councilman. Ellis Smith quotes in the Chattanooga Times Free Press today. He says, "You ask me about anything else, I can tell you to a penny what we have spent on it." That's the one program that we can't. And again, that's reference to a very complex system in a form that has already been outdated. Wi-Fi has been superseded by 4G, according to Ellis, which has emerged as a viable and existing alternative to Wi-Fi. It duplicates Wi-Fi speeds using a cell phone data plan. Government can't do anything right, and I know you think there are all kinds of examples of government doing things right, like welfare, care of the poor, military defense, better tanks, MRAP, mine-resistant vehicles. We have Obamacare. We know that that's going to be doing well, and the drug plan for seniors. There are all kinds of things that you can say to me. Well, look, David Toulis, you don't know what you're talking about, because the government does do things well. It does accomplishes the will of the people. It does what Congress wants. We have plenty of money to pay for these things, and notice that we have $16 trillion in bond debt. And are you worried about that? You're just a worry wart. You're concerned about things that are really settled. But I'm kind of going against the crowd here, and I know you're my listener, and you think it's you and me, right? They're not, but maybe more than just you and I think these things about the establishment report, the majority report. I'm glad you listen to my show, and I just wanted to let you know, thank you very much for joining me here at Nuganomics.com. I do run a website, and I have one reader on my website, and it's another guy just like you. And I just want you to know that you are a unique group of people. You are, you too, you my listener and my reader. And I've got a viewer on Channel 2 and Channel 18. Thank you for joining me here at Nuganomics.com. That's a Charter Trinity Bledsoe cable TV systems. And our show is on numerous places. If you want to download our show or hear it later, it streams at ustream.tv. You just have to go to Copperhead 1240, and you can turn up our show. My website is Nuganomics.com, and I usually run the show. I post the shows there usually. And if you think that I have anything of value to say to you tomorrow, well, I look forward to seeing you. Again, the name is David Toulis, and our show and our website are Nuganomics.com. And I'm glad you had a chance to sit in today to talk with these two young businessmen. They were very realistic young men. I thought they were very. I got a wonderfully, I thought, honest discussion about the whole world of credit. David Toulis here. I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for joining me.
Frustrated with the high cost of phone service? Do you long for the freedom to work with a locally owned and experienced phone and internet company that understands the needs of small business? I'm David Snyder, owner of RevTel.net and VolState.net in Dayton. My companies have been providing small businesses with high-speed internet for the last 17 years. RevTel.net, our new cloud-based phone service, is